Economy money flows. If this doesn't scare you, maybe you should check your pulse. I sort of thought that was kind of a catchy title. To say I don't understand the economy or economics would be an understatement, though I do read a lot and I watch a lot of videos. And it's still the extent to which I don't understand it still bothers me. So I will keep at it. But there's one question or one aspect of the economy that continues to confuse me, and I don't ever see anybody talking about it. And I'd like to share that with you. If you look at the pieces of the puzzle, there's the government sector, the private sector, and the foreign sector. And the government spends money. It buys things from the foreign sector, and the foreign sector buys things from the government. But I think, the government runs a negative trade deficit with the foreign sector. So this is indicating that it sends more money out than it gets back. And the same thing with the private sector. It spends money into the private sector in numerous ways, and it gets some of it back in taxes and fees and licenses and various and sundry things. Additionally, the private sector buys things from the foreign sector, and the foreign sector buys things from the private sector. So there's a trade imbalance going on there also. Though what happens is when Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1972, I think it was, Congress failed to eliminate the law that says the government can't spend money that it doesn't have. So if it's going to spend money and it doesn't have it, it has to borrow it, which creates the national debt. And the MMT people say that we should look at it as the national investment rather than the national debt. It doesn't matter what you call it, it's still a number that's getting more and more negative on an ongoing basis. And from time to time, the government might pay down some of that debt, though when was the last time you saw that happen? So this and the sector's balance. In other words, the money flowing in all the directions, if you add it all up, it has to balance because none of it evaporates. It's not created out of nowhere, and it doesn't end up going nowhere. So it's all there. Well, it's all there somewhere, though. Where is it? Because it seems that while this appears to make sense, where's the national debt money come from that gets borrowed? If we change the way the picture looks, now this is the same set of relationships. I haven't added anything. I've just changed the order in which they're displayed so that there's the government sector, foreign sector, private sector, and the national debt. If you look at the foreign sector, it makes loans to the government and it gets back principal and interest. So it takes out more than it gives. So this number gets even more negative. And the private institutions loan money into the private sector, banks and other lending institutions, and they get back principal and interest, so they're taking out more than they're putting in. And that those private institutions buy treasuries, they loan money to the government, and they get back principal and interest over time, which makes this number even more negative. And then we have this wonderful group of people, which I refer to as economic vampires, who make investments into the private sector, and then they take out more than they put in. So they're just extracting from the private sector. And the accumulated wealth that they have, they make loans to the federal government and get principal and interest back. So they get even more money. So when you look at this picture, it's a picture of an ongoing extraction because the money comes from the government, and it doesn't make any difference how much money the government spends into the economy. It's all extracted by the economic vampires in the foreign sector and those people who create private debt. So if the government was not doing deficit spending on an ongoing basis, the private sector would simply become more and more anemic. Ask yourself how many pints of blood you could lose before you die. The economy's the same way. If it doesn't have money to spend, if people don't feel that they're going to have money, more money in the future, they won't spend money. And because of the money that's getting extracted, the government has to put some of it back on an ongoing basis. So this is the puzzle that bothers me in terms of where it is that this is headed over the longer term. I mean, the MMT people say that we should focus on interest, on inflation rather than the debt, because the debt is actually just an investment in the country. Well, it's not so much an investment in the country as it's an investment in the foreign sector, economic vampires, and the lending institutions, because that's where all the money goes. I mean, it doesn't make any difference how much it rains on the top of the mountain, it all flows into the ocean sooner or later. So I just thought that I would offer you this puzzle that keeps me up at night, more nights than I wish it did. So take care. Look forward to your thoughts. Bye.